Welcome to the Pickleball Addiction podcast. Today I'd like to welcome Karen Mitchell, co-founder of Pickleball England.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for taking the time out of your day. I know you're super busy always with your volunteer job, as we were talking about at Pickleball England. How's it going with you, though?
From a results perspective, very well. As I said at the AGM on Sunday, I really believe this year is the tipping point in the UK for pickleball. And I won't take credit from Pickleball England for everything, because there's Pickleball Scotland and, there's some huge powerhouses of people in Wales, spreading the word as well. So, but I do believe the tipping point in the UK is this year.
Excellent. Well, we'll come on to some more numbers from the AGM, which were all very positive. It'd be good to get just a little bit of a background from yourself and kind of where it all began for you in playing pickleball. And, when did you decide that you wanted to do something more than just play pickleball?
So my pickleball journey started in 2015. I was putting out my bins, and some neighbours were walking in tracksuit bottoms. They're in their late 60s, so it was a bit unusual in tracksuit bottoms. I said, "Where are you off to?" Looking all sporty. And they said the village hall, which is opposite where I live, and they're going to play pickleball. And the answer was, "Pickle what?" And I've heard that so many times myself since then. And they said, "Come along and have a look." So I couldn't refuse. I went. They then put a paddle in my hand. And that afternoon, I connected with my inner child, felt joy. Given that I was had been bereaved the previous year, joy, that was an important aha moment for me. And I went back the next week to play again and continued to play. That was early in 2015. I met my now husband late in 2015, and when I knew that we were serious about each other, I introduced him to pickleball. I wasn't going to do it before that, and he enjoyed it as well. He was looking for something. He was still playing football, even though he was in his late 50s, but he was looking for something else, and pickleball was the thing that he really felt that he could play more of, and that was the beginning of our journey together. In 2016, I think it was, we went to our first tournament. That's when we discovered that our pickleball court that we'd learnt on in the village hall wasn't a full-size court, so that was a baptism by fire for a start. So after that, we decided that we needed to be playing on a full-size court if we really wanted to compete. And so with the help of a local lady who used to be on a judging panel for the local courts, she helped negotiate us getting some space on a pay-to-play basis in Eastbourne. Now I'm just going to take a little sidetrack for a second. That pay-to-play at Shinewater in Eastbourne, which is a bit of a deprived area actually, that started with a few of us. I think there probably was about 8 of us the first time, and one session for 2 hours. They now have, that was on a Thursday, they now have Monday, Wednesday, Thursday and Saturday afternoon sessions. And there's also 3 advanced sessions in the afternoons as well. So, that chance that they took on pickleball in 2016 has now saved that sports centre really, because I was talking to one of the managers and they said that pickleball is the highest user of that centre.
Wow.
So it's a shame they've only got 3 courts, to be honest. We could fill so many more courts if they had more. So my little tangent there, but it was an important point because it shows how the massive growth of pickleball, in that intervening time has taken place, right? So that was 2016. We went to our first international tournament in 2017. We went and did the Bainbridge Cup in Madrid. Got to meet a lot of people from the States then, including Ron Ponder, who has been to every English Open tournament. I think it was around then that there was a UK pickleball And I think that GB Pickleball was starting to be thought of around that time as well. Both of which sort of like had bumpy existences. And by 2018, a few players had started talking individually to Frank, co-founder, and Franco Rico and myself. Might be different players, I'm not even really sure, but suggesting that we do a governing body. The issue for UK and GB was the fact that they were trying to do the whole of the UK. And Pickle Scotland, by the time we were looking at this, had already stated they were going to be starting their own governing body. Right. So Frank and I decided that if we're going to do this, we would do England only.
Okay.
And then, of course, Wales asked us if we would incorporate them. This was at our first AGM, and we said to them, we're happy for you to join us and we'll support you with however we can, but we can't become Pickleball England and Wales because there is no Sport England and Wales. So we obviously already had a thought about getting recognition for the sport for us to have that response. I will say that there was a little bit of pushing by players for us to do this, and I probably was a bit naive going in about how much time I could invest into this. I think I thought it might be a few hours a week. Well, it is a full-time job.
Yeah.
A volunteer full-time job. So, but anyway, that's my pickleball story.
I imagine, it's kind of got ramped up for you. Oh, well, I mean, how quickly did it become that full-time job? Did it feel like straight away, or has it kind of crept up on you over the years and suddenly it's more than you thought?
As it's got bigger, got as pickleball's got more popular, it's become a bigger job. So in 2019, after all the setup, in fact it was 2018, we set it up very late and got it incorporated with Companies House. That first foray was quite intense, and then when we launched, there was, a lot of communications happening and things like that. But after that, the bulk of the effort was probably on the English Open tournament that I was already working with Sam Basford on, and trying to get people on board for regional directors and county representatives. So obviously during COVID, we couldn't do very much, so I had a nice rest there. And in fact, Chris and I were very lucky. We played every day in our village hall, the court I just told you that we learnt on, because no one could go into the village hall, and I had a key. I got permission that we would hire the court every day. So the village hall was still getting a little bit of income, and we were getting to practice every day. My game really improved actually during COVID. And since then it's gone down because I don't get to play often enough as I should. But anyway.
So is it still badminton courts that you play on in those, in that place in Eastbourne?
In Eastbourne, they are badminton courts. We've got a non-volley zone line on there, but it is badminton courts. However, during COVID, Chris and I decided to build a court in our garden, and we now have a really lovely pickleball court that when the weather's nice, we love to play out there. And we've had some really great sessions inviting people over for lunch and play, and we've even had some parties where we've had people playing pickleball when it's a birthday party or whatever. It's a lot of fun.
Great fun, that's the dream. Love it. I'm very envious of your back garden pickleball court for sure. So so this, I know Pickleball Wales are actually doing quite a bit of there. There's some people there that are kind of trying to get that kind of going properly now, right? Pickleball Island. Sorry, go ahead.
Kath and Paul, and I believe Richard is also involved in that, leading the charge. And we're doing anything we can to help them with that. Frank helped them with their bylaws or constitution, and I was on a call with Kath and Paul and an organisation in Wales that helps sports endeavours. So, we'll do whatever we can to support them. It's important to have a Pickleball Wales, actually. I'm sure we'll come on to that more anyway.
Yeah. And there's already Pickleball Island, right?
It's all Ireland. So Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland have combined into Pickleball Ireland.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. No, that's really. I've heard your story a few times, but that was quite interesting to kind of hear it again. Some of the things that
But I
you've.
hope I don't bore people with it.
Oh no, no. Well, I'm sure a lot of people won't have heard it before. But for me, yeah, no, it was nice to hear it again and some extra details in there as well. That's really nice. So let's get on to like the hot topic of the moment then. Hi, Mark Mars here. I hope you're enjoying the show. This podcast is sponsored in part by the Pickleball Addiction store and newsletter. To support the show, please check out the Pickleball Addiction store at pickleballaddiction.co, where we stock a wide range of paddles, balls, nets and other accessories. Use coupon code POD10, that's POD10, to get 10% off your first purchase. You can also check out the Pickleball Addiction newsletter at pickleballaddiction.news, where we cover the latest news in pickleball from the UK and around the world. Thanks for your support, and now back to the show. Which is, we've already alluded to it, kind of getting recognition from Sport England, and you know the process that you've undergone from that. I know you started talking to Sport England quite a long time ago now. So can you take us through, like, give us an overview, kind of what's happened so far?
So we started in 2019. We reached out to Sport England to clarify the process. I think we had to have 750 members in order to start the process, and we got that, fairly rapidly actually. So we did start the recognition process. Our first part of that was the pre-application, where you've got to define the sport and provide some details of it for Sport England to assess whether or not this is a different sport and whether you can go to the full application process. So we submitted our original application in June of 2021, and we got the approval of the pre-approval stage in February of 2022. So, that was the start for us to then go into the full application process. That full application process is really quite a significant process. So we had to add some policies. Those various things we needed to put in place in order to meet the criteria. And we're ready to put in our full application in April of 2023. So, it took us, more than a year to actually get our full application together. Now, bear in mind, we're all volunteers. We're doing this part-time. Maybe, if we had staff, it could have been a quicker process, but, that's when it was. So the application was submitted, and Sport England asked us to meet with the LTA. We met with the LTA, explained that we were quite happy to collaborate with them, but that we didn't want to come underneath them because we knew that paddle was already underneath them. Very cordial meeting, and we agreed that we would meet again after the English Open. We have invited both the LTA and Sport England to come along to the English Open. In fact, I've been inviting Sport England to come along to every tournament that we've had since 2019, actually. But sadly, no one's ever available to come along. And then we didn't actually manage to meet with the LTA again until October of that year, when they came to us with a proposal. They said they wanted to incorporate pickleball, and they gave us 3 options about how that might be. One of them, we agreed to go off and talk as a board about, because there was just James, Frank and myself at the meeting. When the board met, we reviewed all the options, and we decided that actually it wasn't in the best interest of pickleball to go under the LTA. And we went back to the LTA and said that we decline, and that, we've been reiterating to Sport England that our application must be looked at under its own device.
Merits. Yeah.
It stand on its own merit. And we asked for Sport England to let us know when our application would be reviewed back in September time, I think it was, and they said it would be November. When we copied in Sport England to our response to the LTA, they advised that the meeting had been postponed to March of this year because we were talking to the LTA. We were only really talking because this Sport England asked us to talk to them, but c'est la vie. And so now that's why we're really focused on that Sport England meeting in March. It's next month. It's not far away.
Yeah.
Where they'll be discussing pickleball. Now, they haven't confirmed that they'll be discussing our application. They've confirmed that they're discussing pickleball. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. A couple of questions there. And so, what's do you think Sports England's interest is in meeting with the LTA in the first place, and actually kind of thinking about that being an option? But also, what's the benefit of the LTA for having pickleball under their banner?
So, from a Sport England perspective, they told us when we passed the pre-approval that even if we passed the full application process, we shouldn't expect any funding for Pickleball England.
Right.
Now, when we started this journey, we didn't actually go into it to get funding from Sport England. We went into it for pickleball to be recognised. And for us to be recognised as the NGB, so that clubs could actually access funding, for new equipment, things like that. So, that wasn't an issue for us when they said there would be no funding. What we've noticed is that Sport England, there are a lot of sports out there, and I think they want to rationalise their relationships. And, to a certain extent, I can understand that. There's only so many people, resources. But the thing about pickleball is that it is a sport for everybody, all ages, all abilities, right around the country. It can be played on, lots of different surfaces, whether it be, outdoor tennis surface, or mugger courts, or just your car park, any surface really. In leisure centres, on badminton courts. We've even lined up gym courts, gym floors, it can be played anywhere really. So it doesn't really fall under any one camp. And I don't think that tennis has got any greater claim on it than badminton would have, in reality.
Yeah.
And badminton have not even made a noise that they would like, pickleball underneath them. So I can understand Sport England's perspective about rationalising relationships. However, Sport England have got a massive campaign to get people active, and pickleball could be a really great tool for them to get people active, because it's the sort of game that, you don't even realise you're exercising when you're playing it, right? Because it's fun. It's easy to pick up. And, what makes it so great is that anyone can be playing, within about 30 minutes to an hour. And then it takes a long time to really master. So there's always something to be striving for, and, which makes you want to play more as well, right? So I think that pickleball is an ideal sport to be at the centre of any Sport England activity strategy, get people active. From a LTA perspective, I think that they see pickleball as a threat. They can see the momentum building. They've seen what's happened in the US. And they also have their Tennis Opened Up program, which is to try and get, younger people into tennis and, to retain older players as well. So, I think that that's really their motive, is, to stop the threat, but also potentially leverage it for the older and the younger. Again, that doesn't work for us. We want pickleball to be for everybody, and not limited in any way. So that's the reason why we're resisting. And that's the reason why we need to make sure prior to the review meeting that Sport England really understand that it's important for a nascent sport like ours to have its own governing body, so that our wings aren't clipped, that we can grow this sport as quickly as we have. I mean, we started in 2019, and I looked up the number just before we started this interview. Momentum, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's fantastic. I assume the promotion of the English Open kind of helped with that, the fact that those got opened up, or is it other things that are happening?
It's other things, really. So the English Open, you don't have to be a Pickleball England member to enter. So it doesn't drive any membership for the English Open or from the English Open. Other things are really driving it. There are events like pickleball leaders certifications for leagues, things like that. You need to be a Pickleball England member, so that drives membership. Clubs doing a drive, saying to their members, please join Pickleball England. I always see spikes when a particular club has communicated to their members. Pickleball Wales, I communicated with the team that are working on that they had 203 members, I think, within Pickleball England, and their number to get the ball started with the recognition process for Pickleball Wales is 250. So they've been doing a drive to get memberships. It's all sorts of things like that will drive membership.
Yeah, maybe you should have to be a Pickleball England member to enter the English Open or something like that. There's quite a few probably that aren't.
You have to for the nationals. You have to for
Right.
the nationals, but not the English Open, because we want to attract people from all different countries, and for that reason,
Yeah.
you don't want to force them to become a member of Pickleball England.
No, that makes sense. Okay, yeah. So going back to the Sport England stuff, then. So yeah, I mean, the pickleball is great because it is easy to learn, hard to master. All of the best games like that. I used to play quite a lot of poker, and that's exactly the same way. So easy to pick up, but to become really good at it takes time. And just hitting a plastic ball with a bat is what I always say. It's just so much fun and joy in doing that. It's really satisfying, and I think that's why, for me, that was the thing that I enjoyed most when I first played it for the first time. So
I mean, you look at that wiffle ball and you think, oh, that's just too hokey, but actually it's fantastic. It really is. As I say, my first time I connected with my inner child, and every time I play I connect with my inner child. Well, that's special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it, we talked about the Tennis Opened Up program, which is, to clarify, they're talking about using it for youth as a feed out almost into tennis, right? And then when tennis becomes too much physically for people, then to actually then have something else to do kind of after that. But it shouldn't be a feeder into tennis, because it's not tennis for a start, and also it's such a fantastic game, as we just expressed, in its own right. Look what's happening in the US; it's just taking over. Absolutely. And I mean, well, go ahead. Yeah.
I was talking to a tennis centre this morning, actually, and I do think that pickleball can be a feeder for tennis, but I don't think it's at the neglect of pickleball, right? This gentleman was telling me that he can access different pockets of people offering pickleball, and many of them have taken up tennis as well, youngsters as well as older people, but because it attracts different people in the first instance, he's getting many more people come to his centre, and everyone's really enjoying it. And then once they're at the tennis centre, they look at tennis as well. So it definitely can be a feeder, and I'm not against it being a feeder for tennis, but I don't want it only to be a feeder for tennis.
No. And actually, I've seen it the other way around, where at the club that I play at, people play tennis, and then they see people playing pickleball, and they give that a go as well. So it kind of works in both directions.
Yeah, exactly.
So What would the LTA say then? So, I mean, you said that you feel that they worried about it being a threat to tennis, but I'm sure that's not what they would
And they
say.
haven't said that. Don't get me wrong. They haven't actually articulated
No,
that.
no, no.
That's
But
my
what?
reading
Yeah.
between the lines.
But what would their reasoning if we were to ask them? Why do you want pickleball under under your control? What would they say?
Well, they've actually said that they feel that it would fit nicely within their tennis opened up,
Right,
and
of
that they've
course.
got. I mean, they positioned it as they could help us. They could help pickleball, by opening up tennis courts, by letting us have access to their people that specialize in different areas, like safeguarding and promotion and getting into schools. And, so they did give us a sales pitch that, said these are all the areas that we can help pickleball with. And don't get me wrong, all of that sounds really great, right? Um, but the downside is that the LTA's infrastructure is really set up for tennis. It's added paddle into it. Now, my own personal opinion is that whilst paddle has grown, it's not grown at the rate it could have done if there'd been a paddle association just dedicated to driving the growth of paddle. And so I don't want that to happen for pickleball. And I say but I mean the board. None of us want that to happen for pickleball. Um, so just remaining independent is critical, I think, for growth. And the people that have reached out since the Telegraph article, for instance, they feel the same way. Everyone seems to think that it would be a backward step for pickleball to be subsumed by the LTA.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, we won't speculate about what the different outcomes might be, and if it did become under one banner or the other or whatever, then what might happen. But just lastly on this before we move on to something else, that what would it mean for pickleball and the growth of pickleball to be recognised as a sport by Sport England?
Well, as I said earlier, pickleball clubs could access, lottery funding and other sources. I mean, lots of trusts that have got funding for sports. One of their first requirements is that the sport is recognised. So, that's the
Okay.
primary reason for recognition, is so that people can access funding. From a Pickleball England perspective, it recognises that we've put a lot of infrastructure in place, and that Sport England want to work with us. Given that we have put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, it would be nice to have that cherry on top. And in fact, that was the goal that Frank and I set ourselves when we started Pickleball England, is that we would shepherd Pickleball England through to recognition by Sport England. And I'm already thinking about the fact that we're in an inflection point right now, and we need to prepare ourselves for the next few years. And part of that preparation needs to be me transitioning off as well. Frank is already transitioning off as of the last AGM,
Yeah.
and we need to get a plan in place that enables me to transition off at the right time as well. So Sport England recognition is pretty important to us.
For sure. Okay, let's move on to the AGM then. And
One other thing, actually.
yeah, sure.
Sorry, one other thing. Um, if pickleball ever wants to be an Olympic sport, I believe that it needs to be a separate association. There'll be a separate world governing body for pickleball, as there are a few in the frame at the moment, but we'll cover that later. But there'll be an international or world governing body, and that individual pickleball associations and confederations would be linked to that governing body, and they would then submit their teams for the Olympics. I think Sport England recognition of Pickleball England is a vital part of that step.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that's really interesting. I had a question. We originally planned to do this interview back in October last year, and I mentioned it on my on the Pickleball Addiction Facebook group that you were coming on, and if anybody had any questions, and that was one of the questions was, do you know what it will take to make pickleball an Olympic sport, and how far are we down that road? So that's definitely one piece of the puzzle. Do you think?
Yeah, I don't know how far we're down the road. We need to have one world governing body first, and we there needs to be over 70 countries playing it. That piece is definitely in place, but then the 70 countries need to have enough players to be able to select a team from, right?
Hmm.
In the UK, we need to have a UK governing body that England and Scotland and Wales can filter up to, so that there could be a GB team. So there's lots of challenges along the way. I don't know how long it will be before pickleball could be in the Olympics, and I think there are some other bigger challenges that need to be resolved first anyway. So
Hmm.
I'm not going to hold my breath, is what I'm going to say.
Yeah. Okay, that might move. I mean, so before we go on to the AGM thing, so you're on the board of directors at the World Pickleball Federation. Um, is that what we're talking about here when we're talking about a global, federation for the sport? What is the WPF's kind of mission, and what does your role entail within that?
So I don't really want to spend a lot of time on international, because that's sort of like, if this is my day job volunteer, that's my night job
Mm.
volunteer role, right? But you're right, I am on at least I'm currently on the board of directors for the World Pickleball Federation. I've been doing that since 2019. I will say that, whilst there's a really nice group of volunteers there, we don't have enough time for it, really. I
Mm.
mean, we're all involved in, our own associations, and there's never enough time to really devote to it. And so what's happening right now in international is that there are three um, bodies jockeying for that position of world governing body, right?
Right.
So there's World Pickleball Federation, there's the International Pickleball Federation, and there's also Global Pickleball Federation. I will just say a couple of things on this, though. One of the things that Frank and I agreed for Pickleball England is that our organisation needs to be democratic. It needs to be a member-led organisation, and the bylaws, need to allow for members to express, their will, right? So for elections for directors, so that you could influence there. In fact, we've got elections happening right now, which we can talk about later, and AGMs, transparency of information. All of those things are really fundamentally important to us. The World Pickleball Federation has democratic bylaws. The International Pickleball Federation has some democratic bylaws, but it doesn't go 100% of the way. Global Pickleball Federation, in our view, does not have democratic bylaws. So Pickleball England is currently a member of the European Pickleball Federation, and a member of the World Pickleball Federation, but is not a member of either of the other organisations. And from my perspective, all the time, I have any influence, I would not sign up to any of the other organisations, because they're not democratic. If I cannot influence just by one vote, who's elected to a board, then I don't think that that's democratic. And Global Pickleball Federation have been inviting countries to join them and offering board seats with no
Right.
one voting for them, right? And I would also like to point out, and I don't want to cause too much controversy here, but the US Pickleball Association, USAP, that governs pickleball in the US, they've never had an AGM, and they've never had an elected director. It's all the board
Mm.
identifies their board themselves. So
Right.
they just don't hold water, from my perspective, as democratic organisations.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it'll be interesting to see how that all pans out then over the coming years as well. But it's all coming in one way or another, so that's a good thing. But okay, onto the AGM then. So you mentioned, yeah. So you mentioned in the AGM that there's 15,000 estimated kind of players in the UK, and you mentioned 6.5.
I think that's woefully underestimated,
Mm,
actually. Just,
mm,
talking anecdotally to people, I actually think that's underestimated. So the way I calculate that number is based on, the clubs that sign up and the number of players they have, our membership numbers, and event sign-ups and as well. So it's a bit of an extrapolation. I'm not saying that it's very scientific, but that's how I calculate it. But just talking to players and club leaders recently, I think I might be underestimating it rather than overestimating it. The U3A, for instance, I think I shared at the AGM. I'm just going to look for the page actually. The number of members they had was significantly higher than I had put in for my calculations. So I'm just looking for that while I'm talking. I'm blown away by the work that David Pecci is doing, helping new U3A clubs get together. So the number that they had, 2,750.
wow.
And that's across 83 U3A organisations.
Wow. That is a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's huge.
I do wonder about how many clubs are out there that kind of aren't registered with Pickleball England as well. And obviously
Yeah, there
players that
are a
aren't.
few.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
They
there are a few.
just sort of pop up.
Obviously, I don't know about them. Otherwise, I'd be asking them to
Yeah,
register.
exactly.
But I'm sure there are a few. I have actually, a couple of times I've heard about new clubs and I've reached out, and they say that they're just testing the waters about whether or not they can actually do regular sessions, and that when they do regular sessions, they'll register, and that's fair enough.
I think it makes sense. I can't imagine many not doing that because it's such a good advertising for them. If people are looking for a club, where would they go?
Yeah,
They're gonna find the page on the Pickle England website ultimately. So
yeah.
you wouldn't not do it unless you just didn't know about it. Really. So yeah, I
Well,
think it.
the reason for signing up to Pickleball England really is to get on the club locator, because that drives
Mm,
people to the clubs. If you're trying to build it, you want to register so you can be on that club locator. And sometimes it does drive too many people. I've had a few clubs that say, can you just say that we're closed because we've got sufficient numbers at the moment, so we update the club locator to show it's still there, but that they're not taking new members at the moment,
mm.
so that's one of our biggest places, locations on our website that people visit is our club locator.
Oh yeah, well, absolutely. That's how I found my local clubs when I first got interested. So
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah, absolutely. It's a shame. I think it'd be good if these clubs would still take applicants and just retain a list. That they could then reach out to you later on. But also, other clubs could
Well,
start nearby.
when I say that they're full, I also add in there a link for them to be able to say that they're interested, so that we're
Right,
capturing
great.
the information. So yeah, it's not lost completely.
Yeah, excellent. I think so. You said mentioned 6,500 active members, Pickleball England, with a forecast of hopefully 10,000 by the end of the year, which would be nice. It's starting to look exponential, and I mean I've only really been in pickleball a year or so, and even I feel like it's starting to get legs of its own, and I'm not sure you feel like that. Things are happening without you even knowing, and whereas previous
Yeah.
probably you knew everything that was happening in pickleball, and suddenly things are popping up all over the place. It feels like lots of initiatives are happening all on their own right now.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think I said in the AGM that the ecosystem is really growing. There are many more people involved in pickleball, from a selling equipment perspective, coaching, media, like yourselves, and it's only going to grow in that regard. So that's all positive signs that this game isn't going away. And people, events as well, people are making money by putting on events now. That's not a bad thing to happen, because it's giving players what they want. They want to go and play, right? And we can't possibly put on all the events in the country. So all of these are good things that are happening that demonstrate the growth and the fact that it's starting to stand on its own two legs, really.
Yeah, I will put a link to the AGM presentation in the description of the video and the podcast, so people can go and look at it. But yeah,
you can actually access it if you're a member, though. So you can put the link, but it'll only work if you're signed in. So
there you go. So another reason to sign up to Pickleball England. But
exactly.
But there was a huge amount of information you pulled together there. Yeah, and it was really interesting to say, like, all of the ecosystem things. A lot of them, really only popped up in the last year, right? Of those things. So it's good. And there's 449 venues you had versus 285 from the previous AGM. So that's a huge number of new venues.
Absolutely. And if you give me a second, I'll look at what today's number is, because that's been increasing. We've actually, Lauren Bundell has actually been adding the places to play onto the club locator, because Frank was doing them previously and he just couldn't keep up with them. And so the number that we've got on there right now is 505, and that's just an increase since last Sunday. Yeah, I know. So it's growing, and I think I said at the AGM as well. I can feel it. Like every time I think about this, I've got the Jacksons singing in my head. Can you feel it? Can you feel it?
Yeah.
Feel it. The drum. Dun, 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 dun.
I mean, definitely. Like I mean, that's just incredible. That's amazing, and I love that. And I think it's so important that you do have somebody that's on that now as well. Because again, if people are looking to play, that's ultimately going to be registrations for Pickle England ultimately. But you just want more and more people playing, don't you? If they've got a club nearby and it's on the locator, because that is. If you search on anything on the web to do with finding a pickleball club in the UK, you end up at that page, and that's just so important for that. So I'm really pleased that you've really got somebody that's going to be looking after that now long term, because that's going to be huge, I think.
We're very grateful to Lauren. He's doing a really great job. You used to have to wait sort of 7 to 10 days for it to be updated. I think he does it within within 24 hours in most cases, but 2 to 3 days max. So and that is vital. So thank you, Lauren.
I mean, people keep finding new venues and places to play, but you got to feel at some point. I know that there are clubs that are, like you already mentioned, they're over capacity because and they haven't got another facility or another place that they can go in the local area. I mean, so. At some point we're going to max out all of those badminton courts, and we're going to need some dedicated facilities, right? As well.
I think you're going to start to see them growing, coming, in the next few months. I think there'll be more and more that will come about. Telford Pickleball Club, starting in August of last year, after the English Open, that has proven that if you build it, people will come. At first, I don't think that Mike was convinced he was actually going to make it profitable. He tied it up with his own software for booking the courts and things like that, in thinking that he might be able to defray some of the costs. But, he's now talking about expanding. So, he's done a phenomenal job there. And, people just love playing on the dedicated pickleball courts. No more extra lines and, all the rest of it. So, it's brilliant. And he then will give others confidence to do the same. And, I know there are projects. I've spoken to lots of different people. I can't disclose any information, but there are lots of projects bubbling under there. And, sooner or later, they're all going to start to be implemented.
Yeah. I'm incredibly impressed, with what he's done with that. He's also, just for people listening, he's also running seminars if you're interested in starting your own club, so that you can kind of get the insight into like how he kind of makes it a profitable, which is great. Because I've also spoken to quite a few people who are thinking about starting facilities, and they're all in the pipeline. But everyone I've kind of spoken to, he said, you can't really do it unless you have a social space with a bar and food and all of those things, because it can't pay for itself through court fees alone. Now he's pretty much done that, so I'm really impressed that I know he's got a plan. I've been trying to get him on since the English Open last year, and he says, no, I can't, I'm too busy. And he's said he will at some point, but since the English Open last year, and since he set up straight after that with the courts. So I will at some point. I'm nagging him every month to do it. So he will at some point. But
and also, you look at what they're doing on the social media side of things as well. You can tell they're building a community as well. So everything that Pickleball is, they're doing with that centre as well. So it's just brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, talking about the Open then, how's the planning for the Open coming along? And
I said I wasn't going to do another one after the last one, that someone else would have to do it. Oh dear.
Before you go on to that, I just want to say again, and I say it every time, what a spectacle it was, the English Open. If you're not registered and you love pickleball, you get registered, because they're running out of space. It's running out of spaces. Because I've been to a lot of sporting events. I love sport, and I've been to a lot of sporting events over the years. From like the Ashes in the cricket and football and lots of things. But honestly, that for me was just so good. I didn't want to leave. I didn't want it to end. I just love playing on those dedicated courts, of course, that you mentioned, but also just going to the main court where you had the proper seating, that was tiered seating, and just to be able to watch the pros play when you weren't playing. You're just like completely immersed in pickleball for 3-4 days, and it was honestly, even now you can probably tell I just get so excited when I think about that time that I had there. So it was brilliant, and I know how much work it is for you, but I'm not the only one who had the time of my life there at that time. So it was brilliant.
I know. I must admit that the feedback that we had from the English Open was phenomenal, and it was a step change from previous events. The year before we were at Southampton, and that was a great event. Everyone loved it, and it was sort of like our template of having pros come over and all the rest of it. But having the whole thing on dedicated pickleball courts in a massive place like Telford, that really ratcheted up the excitement. I got goosebumps myself, even though it was a lot of stress. I really felt goosebumps the whole time. And I'm glad we're going back to Telford, because the atmosphere there, and we know it works there. So it's not like we're worried about the venue. I mean, believe it or not, I was worried about Telford, not because the space wasn't great, because that was far from the case. I thought it'd be fantastic space, but what I was worried about was that it might feel a little cold compared. It would lack the intimacy. That's what I was worried about. And so, at the last minute, I got Sally to do some posters for the back of the toilet doors to remind people that a smile for the ladies is a great facelift, and for the men, I can't remember exactly what it said, but it makes them more approachable anyway. I wanted to make it as friendly as all of the others had been. Now, I'm not saying that did the trick, but my worries were unfounded, because if anything, it felt even friendlier, and the vibe was just incredible. Yeah. I was locked in a room most of the time, doing stuff that needed to be done, but I even felt it inside that room. It was palpable. It really was. very happy. We're all very happy with the English Open last year. And, we're hoping that even though we've extended it to 7 days, that we don't lose any of that. If we get the sort of 1,500 to 2,000 registrations that we are projecting, then I don't think we will lose any of that. We've got, I just got the numbers up in front of me actually, so just bear with me while I quickly look. It's over 1,000 that we've got anyway. It's 1,183 registrations as at this morning. So, we're over halfway there, and we only opened registration just over 2 weeks ago. So, that was actually fun seeing those numbers go up. In fact, I've got my little clipboard here. To be honest, it was quite amazing watching it. Let me just get this in front of me.
Yeah, I bet as soon as
so
the email, I know I was waiting.
We opened registration at 11 o'clock. By 11:07, there were 175 registrations. 11:30, 361. 12 noon, 421. 1 p.m., 504. 1:30, 517. I then had to go out. So 3:10, we had 575. By 5:30, it was 616. By midnight, 698. That just showed you that the whole day consistently. We got to, so that was on the 18th, was it we opened up? No, the 12th we opened up. We got to 1,000 on the 15th. So in 3 days, it's 982 in 3 days, so nearly 1,000.
Yeah.
So that was fun seeing those go up. What we now need to focus on is getting players from overseas, because that's the other piece that makes it very special, is having lots of overseas players, and to get next generation and potentially pro players over as well. So lots of work to do still.
Yeah. I can't remember if I've told you this already or not, but I was listening to a podcast which Susanna Barr was on, and she was asked what was her favourite tournament of the year in 2023, and she said the English Open.
Bless her.
Yeah.
Well, she actually reached out to me and said, she said that she'd love to come back. So we're going to be talking to her about potentially coming back. She was wonderful, wasn't she? Everyone that interacted with her said how amazing she was. And, I see that on social media when people respond to her, she responds back. Really lovely lady.
Really lovely person, and so smiley. She didn't need that sign on the back of the toilet, because she's just smiling all the time, and I think she was just having a great time herself.
Exactly.
You could tell.
Exactly. Yeah. Now she's just opened up her own indoor pickleball club as well, so I'd love to hear from her how that's going too.
Yeah, definitely, and yeah. Okay, all right. So just thinking at the time here, let's just okay. I guess one last question before we just go on to like the quick fire kind of future kind of question. So I guess, what is Pickle England not doing today, maybe at the grassroots level of the game, that you'd like to be able to focus on kind of going forward, or would like to put some focus on going forward? Or is there anything?
So there are lots of things. We can always do more, right? You just cut your cloth according to your means. And one of the things that we'd like to be able to do is provide clubs with access to tools that will help them. So I keep talking about having I call it customer relationship management system, but it could be account management system, whatever you want to call it. But basically having a system where you can have a hierarchy of like players, clubs, and other people in the ecosystem, where they can access data for their own data. So like clubs can have all their members, and their members would be members of Pickleball England, and that there may be some add-ons that come to that come with that they want, whether it be insurance or website, build your own website, or tools, in terms of posters, it could be anything really, but that this is the way to be able to access it. I personally want to be able to see, for instance, Sam Basford. He's one of our two master teaching professionals in the UK. So I want to be able to identify him on our database that he's a master teaching professional. He's also attends events. He's also a tutor for the Pickleball Leaders certification. I want to be able to know my relation, or Pickleball England's relationships with Sam, so we can talk to him with the right relationship at the right time. So I can identify him to ask him if he would mind tutoring a particular course, or I could say to him, Sam, you're an events manager, would you be interested in doing an event here or whatever. At this moment in time, like pulling together the data for the AGM, it's lots of disparate places that the information is at. I'd like it all together so that we can access it, and that regional directors can then see the picture, their snapshot for their regions, for the counties. They can see where they need to perhaps get more county representatives in to be able to build, or support clubs building pickleball. Identifying players that have been through the Pickleball Leaders certification that might be interested in helping for taster sessions. If we need somebody to go along and help for a taster session, knowing that we've got somebody who's qualified and that they're willing to do it, we can go to them first to ask, there's a taster session in your area, would you mind helping? So things like that, just to be more efficient, but to add more for clubs and for players as well.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I mean, that's one thing we haven't touched on is the certification program, the Pickleball England one that's kind of going to be starting kind of soon. Do you want to briefly mention kind of that and what that's about so that people can hear about it?
So we always had a goal, and it's in our strategic plan, that we would eventually bring our own curriculum in. The first entry for that was the Pickleball Leaders certification, which was actually created by Elaine Shawcross, BEM, we've been rolling that out across the country. In fact, we've even rolled it out in Belfast recently. So that was our first stage. We've probably got about 7 tutors that put courses out on that. But we've been leveraging the IPTPA level 1 and level 2 teaching curriculum. We spoke with Riff, who heads up the IPTPA, and said, look, we're at that point where we need to put our own in place. It needs to be UK centric. It needs to meet Sport England guidelines, those sort of things. Could we base it on your teaching, but to make it our own? And he was quite receptive to that. So Sam and Rob Williams, who is also a master teaching professional with the IPTPA, they have been developing our curriculum. Pickleball England asked them to develop. We're paying them to do that. Probably not as much as it's worth, but we still haven't got big purses. And the level 1 is nearly ready. I've seen, I shared at the AGM a little bit of the booklet, but a photographic shoot has happened, just putting all the photos into the right place and getting a forward by Riff and from another sporting body, so that it's got credentials as well. So April we're going to pilot level 1, get some feedback on it, and if the feedback's good, then we will start to roll that out. We will rebadge the the Pickleball Leaders certification, so it looks part of the same curriculum, so because they're part of the same umbrella, right? And then Sam and Rob will switch to level 2 and eventually level 3 coaching to build on it.
Yeah, great, excellent. Okay, I think we've covered a lot of the things here. So this one's really high level. So in the UK, how do we become world leaders in pickleball? So I know that Australia, the UK and Australia are probably after the US, like the places where pickleball is biggest, is my understanding, at least right now. In terms of,
okay, so it's USA, Canada.
Oh, Canada.
And then I think Australia and then England, yeah.
Yeah. I think we have more registered players right in than Australia, but they just have more facilities because they've got more space to build them. Is that correct, or have I got that
No, they've
wrong?
got 10,000 registered players.
Ah, okay.
Now, maybe if England and Scotland, England, Scotland, and Wales all got together, maybe we would challenge them for more
Mm,
players. But they are about over. And I know they haven't got the same population we have, but think of the space they have.
mm. That's well, they can build.
Vast
Yeah, yeah,
spaces. Yeah, they can build. Yeah. So.
yeah. Which is definitely our challenge. Okay,
Mm.
but okay, and I guess to become world leaders, we need to have to build the facilities to encourage the players at grassroots to come in and actually kind of make that happen. Because I just have a vision of the future where it is a world game where countries compete against each other, and I always like the idea of like a Ryder Cup or what's it called, Davis Cup kind of situation where it's the US versus Europe kind of competitions. That I could see happening in the
Well,
future.
the newsflash for you then, and maybe it hasn't been promoted enough. Actually, I'll have to look into that.
Mm.
There is an Atlantic Cup happening next
Oh,
month in Miami, and James Thaddeus and Louis are part of Team Europe for that Atlantic Cup. And then I think Maria, I can't remember exactly who the other players are. I think Basti might be there from
Germany.
Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is an Atlantic Cup that's happening in Miami. And in November, the European Pickleball Championships
Mm.
are taking place. So, each of the European associations will be submitting a team. England have already paid its subscription to submit a team.
Yep.
So we will be doing a selection process at some point this year. The board needs to focus on that on its first meeting of the board when the current elections are completed.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I knew about the European Pickleball Championships, but the Atlantic Cup I did not know about. So that's interesting. Yeah, I'll have a look at that.
Yeah, it's Europe versus the USA. So,
Is
and
it?
it's just ahead. Yeah, it is.
There
It's
is.
Europe versus USA, and it's going to be just ahead of an APP event in Miami. I want to say it's the second week of March, um, but the date's eluding me for a moment. But it's not far away.
Mm.
It's maybe the second or third week of March, one or the other.
Yeah. Okay. I'll put links again in the description so people can go and check that out. But yeah, that's great. Well, I didn't know. I didn't know that. It's already happening. So that's what I was saying about things happening when you all over the place. You just don't know it's happening.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And so if you were to be given £10 million tomorrow to promote pickleball in the UK, how would you spend it?
I would get some staff in to, focus on pickleball. We're at that point where we need to hire people, and having that sort of money would give us, enough confidence to be able to hire some people. But I wouldn't just spend it on staff. Obviously, that's an awful lot of money. I would spend it on facilities as well. Whether that be, some sort of grant program where people who want to open facilities, can access some pots of funds, or, whether it be us building our own bespoke facility to house the English Open going forward or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
that's my personal opinion, but obviously it's not my decision. It would be a board decision. So that's the way I would sway, but it would be for the board to discuss exactly how. But facilities and staff, I think, the two key priorities from my perspective.
I think something like a national pickleball centre would be good as well. So
That's what I was referring to.
yeah,
So
yeah,
if we had somewhere that could house the English Open, it would be a national
yeah,
pickleball centre. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Okay. Okay, last but not least then, is there anything else that you can share that may not be widely known knowledge, public knowledge at the moment that you're excited about?
Because we just had the AGM, I pretty much shared everything.
That's true.
That's the time when I do share or when we share everything that's been going on and future plans. So I can't think that there's anything that we haven't really announced. And obviously, with the Telegraph article, we're highlighting other things as well. So
Yeah.
no, I can't think of anything. I can't give you an exclusive, Mark. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. That's fine. Um, okay, in that question, one last one then. So, if you have a favorite, do you have a favorite memory since taking on the challenge with pickleball?
I think it's got to be the English Open,
Mm,
actually. It really
mm,
has. And sitting watching some of those, I didn't get to do it as much as I'd like to, and I definitely want to try and do more this year. But sitting watching some of those games on Championship Court, was just incredible, and just feeling the pulse of pickleball in Telford,
mm.
that's never going to diminish, I don't think. It's wonderful. And actually, I just want to have a shout out actually to our live streaming crew. We've been working with John Molyneux since 2021. And I think they get better and better. And,
Mm.
we watch a lot of live streaming from the States and from other countries. And outside of some of the professional tours, I think our live streaming, is the best, really. And I'm excited to see what we can do this year for the English Open as well.
No, yeah.
Pride before a fall, though.
Say that again. Sorry.
I just said pride before. I was very proud of them, but pride
Yeah,
before a fall, they say, don't they? So
yeah,
anyway.
yeah. It's yeah. I mean, it was just so fast the game. I think, and you could just see, in person,
In
it was.
person, you realize how fast it is. On live stream, it doesn't look quite as fast, but it still looks fast, right?
Mhm.
It's just incredible.
What I
And
really
this year for the English, I've got something I can share. I have got something I can share.
great.
This year for the English Open, we always have a team event. Last year we had countries competing against each other. This year it's going to be Battle of the Paddles.
Mm.
We're offering paddle brands the opportunity for their paddles to be used in a team. So they'd be the team owner, and everyone can get involved. So if people are registered for the English Open, regardless of if it's the day that they were originally planning to come along, if they can be there in Telford, if they want to play for a particular brand, they identify which brand they want to play for on the day. It's free. Everyone can come in, and they'll get to play as part of a league representing the brand. And then when it comes to the league positions will be accumulated. And then when it comes to the knockouts, the paddle brands can choose their squad to represent them for the knockout rounds.
Hmm.
So there's prize money for the winners in the squad that get chosen, but there's free play representing a brand for the other people that are there during the day, and there's an opportunity to try different brands out. You can only play for one brand, but there's an opportunity to try all sorts of different brands on the day. So
Hmm.
I think that Battle of the Paddles is going to be a really great event at the English Open, and you
Mm.
heard it here first.
That's great. Yeah, the team event was great as well last year. That you had. That was really good fun as well to watch. But I think what I'll say as well about the pros and that team event is that even the pros from the US, they didn't take it lightly. The English Open, they all really wanted to win. You could tell, and
Yeah,
and that's what made it really exciting as well, because they were annoyed if they didn't win or that wasn't going their way, and it was really good to see that, because that passion really came through on that court and made it a really kind
yeah,
of a electric atmosphere.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we'll wrap it up there, Karen. I want to be respectful of your time. I know you're busy, so but just want to say thanks so much for coming on. It's been really nice talking to you, and yeah, for sharing what you have. Yeah, thanks
You're
once again
welcome.
for
Thank you for
everything you
having
do.
me on. Thank you, thank
All
you.
right.
And as I said at the AGM, the accomplishments that we shared at the AGM are not the board's accomplishments or any individual's accomplishments. It's the collective accomplishment of everyone involved in pickleball, you know, from the players to the club leaders, to county representatives, regional directors, and the national directors, but also the ecosystem that is evolving as well, you know. So we all should, you know, feel really good about how far pickleball has come in this short time. But, you know, you ain't seen nothing yet, right?
Yeah, well, we'll be in 12 months' time. It'd be great to see. Okay, thank you very much, Karen.
Thanks for your time, Mark.
All right,
Thank
bye-bye.
you.